All right, it's time to talk about Molly, the DoorDash driver, once again. Now that we have more info, we got more than 300 PDFs from Moscow police, and there's a lot more information coming. I just got off the phone paying another 50% deposit on more information. Moscow police released 300 or more, 314, 315, something like that, PDFs, and that's just documents, of course, about the Bryan Kohberger case. They released that yesterday after his sentencing hearing. What a hearing it was. Whew. Oh my goodness. But anyway, those are just the documents for those of us who want to see, for example, maybe surveillance video, or I don't know if they'll release interview videos or whatever can be released. I remember them saying something about Bryan Kohberger's jail info might not be released. I just read on TMZ, Bryan talked to his mom, his video visits, like hours and hours each day. And he even got angry when one next door cellmate thought he was insulting Bryan's mom or Bryan. For those of us who want to see other details, again, not the gross stuff, I'm not talking about anything horrible, that has to be requested. So I've been requesting through so many agencies, and some of them, like Moscow police, give me a bill and then I pay half and then we see what we get. That's how I got some of the other Molly, the DoorDash driver's information. So now I was pretty interested in seeing what the official police reports say about Molly. It kind of vindicates her in a way. So let's talk about this. Bryan Kohberger's white Elantra pulled in behind Molly, the DoorDash driver's gray Subaru Forester. So now we know which vehicle she was driving November 13th, 2022, when she dropped off DoorDash delivery to Xana. So from the beginning, we didn't know much. We learned the surviving roommates Dylan and Bethany both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms, by approximately 4 a.m. This is with the exception of Xana Knodel, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. Way back then, they said law enforcement identified the DoorDash delivery driver who reported this information. So now we get more details. And I was up bleary-eyed last night trying to read through as many of these supplemental documents as I could. Whew, it's rough. And I'll probably stay away from some of the rough stuff. You guys know I don't like to get into gory details and what these kids suffered. But it's so much info, I want to just put them in topical videos. So this one is all about the DoorDash driver. So now we know Molly was not driving that big white truck that belonged to Jimmy. She was driving that same Subaru Forester that she had been stopped in previously. She had gotten stopped so many times. That's why we have so much body cam of her. And there's more on the way involving the white truck. My question is, okay, now that I know she was driving that gray Subaru Forester, did she have a dash cam running in that vehicle? I'm going back through body cam and trying to zoom in. We know she has her little dog with her, and they're going to talk about that too when she was around the 1122 King Road house on November 13th, 2022. I can't tell yet if she had a dash cam running any video in that Subaru Forester. We know we kind of went over the rumors on Reddit about her boyfriend allegedly claiming she had a dash cam running.
Legally, you have to come to a stop immediately on the right side of the road. Reason being, say I was going to an emergency call and you thought I was pulling you over. I've been stuck behind you.
If it exists, I was trying to request that too. Moscow's website was just crashing out yesterday. It's a miracle I even got those PDFs, thank God. But remember previously, we looked at that June 18th, 2022, either 18th or 19th, but it says June 18th, at approximately 23:10 hours, so this is close to midnight. Some officer was driving westbound on the northeast Terraview Drive near Old County Road, and they noticed, he said, a 2005 Subaru Forester, but in the same audio, you can hear the dispatcher confirm it was a 2012 Subaru Forester.
Vehicle returned to a 2012 silver Subaru Forester, suspended for no insurance.
Anyway, it was heading eastbound on Northeast Terraview Drive. I noticed the Subaru had a driver's side headlight that was not working, so after the Subaru passed this officer, he turned around and initiated a traffic stop. Now that's when we get to hear Molly again speaking. I'm not sure who's in the passenger side with her. We see her dog.
That it was frozen up. That I need to call and take care of it and get it all dealt with.
with?
So
She explains to one officer she had just gotten stopped in Moscow. So she was getting stopped a lot. But my whole point was to get a view of the Subaru Forester she was driving the night of, or the morning, November 13th, 2022. So let's read what the Moscow Police Department, this is Supplemental 104, had to say about Molly. First of all, it vindicates her by saying, yes, indeed, she was the DoorDash driver. Many people, when it was discovered Molly had all these different incidents with police, she was claiming to have parked right next to Bryan Kohberger that fateful morning. A lot of people are like, oh, she wasn't even the driver. She's completely lying and all this stuff. But it turns out she's not. She was not lying in that respect. The narrative says on November 23rd, 2022, at approximately 20:39 hours, I won't give her whole name, but we can see MM, Molly came to the Moscow Police Department to be interviewed about her presence in the area of 1122 King Road during the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. So it turns out Molly did come into the police station 10 days after these murders. So it was about 8:39 p.m. And it turns out Molly, as we're going to learn, she was in that area around the house for a full 15 minutes. So no wonder Bryan pulled in right behind her. She was there for a while. She's going to talk about figuring out that house, her navigation, where it led her, how she tried to park in the front or behind and walk down on that street and then couldn't see a path and all this stuff and the people who passed her. So she's in the police station. Molly was identified as being in the area through records obtained from DoorDash via a search warrant and was confirmed as being in the area based off a Google geofence warrant, which was obtained as a result of this investigation. I was accompanied by FBI Special Agent Alex Skelton during this interview. So a couple of people are interviewing her. This narrative is by Detective Brett Payne. So we know he's the lead investigator. And I do wonder, why did it take her 10 days at least to come in? Maybe she called police earlier. I don't know. I do see another narrative which talks about the DoorDash warrant. It's dated December 12th, 2022. It explains that Detective Lawrence Mowery on December 6th, 2022 applied and was granted a warrant for all the info in DoorDash's possession related to sales, deliveries, purchases, and or transactions made to 1122 King Road in Moscow for the period of January 1st, 2022 to the present. So they basically almost got the entire year. So they served the warrant. And then on December 7th, 2022, Detective Lawrence received an email from DoorDash containing the data requested pursuant to the warrant. So he downloaded the files, he completed the warrant, return receipt, and affidavit. So that's how we know it's legit. Now, to see what Molly was telling the officers. Molly told me she worked for 12 to 18 hours on the night November 12th to the 13th and received 3 orders in the King Road, Queen Road area. Oh my goodness, can we just give a shout out to how hard some of these dashers work? That's why I like tipping dashers really well. Even if they mess up and that's just a one-time thing, they work hard, you know, finding these strange houses and trying to walk around, and it seems like hard work. I've only blocked a dasher once because I'm like, ugh. If they look like they're lollygagging and not doing the job intentionally, you know, and as well as I tip, I'm like, look, guys, you know. Anyway, she worked 12 to 18 hours. I was like, whoa, this woman is working. So from November 12th through the 13th, she received 3 orders in that King Road, Queen Road area. So I don't know how many else. She was driving all around. You know, she's driven to Washington and back to Idaho. And we've seen in previous body cam videos. And no wonder she gets stopped so often if she doesn't have or didn't have her headlight working. And she's working 12 to 18 hour shifts. Woo! It says 2 of the orders were at the blank redacted Queen Road apartment complex, which is immediately to the east of 1122 King Road. So I'm trying to get these directions in my mind because they speak a lot about, you know, directional stuff in these documents. The only thing I've got straight in my mind so far is the 1122 King Road, you know, the front door with the wreath on it, that faces north. So if you remember that, like your North Star, then I can kind of situate in my mind all the rooms in the house and everything. It says 2 of the orders were at the Queen Road apartment complex, which is immediately to the east of 1122 King Road. So that must be that huge apartment complex. Molly said the delivery at 1122 King Road was her final order for the evening. Imagine that. That's your last ordering. Whew. Look who you run into. Molly said she could not find the 1122 Kind Road, they say again accidentally. It must be autocorrect doing that. She could not find the 1122 Kind Road address as the address number was hidden by the porch light, which caused her to remain in the area for approximately 15 minutes. I seem to remember talk about their porch light. I'm not sure how the address number was hidden. Some of the photos we've seen, the address number looks pretty clear, but I'm not sure from that vantage point. And even Papa Rogers, who allegedly is not Bryan Kohberger, ooh, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I mean, that Papa Rogers guy, in all these screenshots I have, he mentioned something about the overhang or something blocking potentially the address. I'm not sure if that's what he said. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing we'll have to delve into. If Bryan was able to wipe so much of his data on his computers, on his phone, I don't know if cops are saying we just have no evidence of this. I don't know. My thing is, how did Papa Roger know so many things about the knife sheath? Was Papa Roger a detective or some kind of insider trying to get information? Like, whoever Papa Roger was or is had a lot of inside information. So that's what's weird to me. And even the profile chosen looks just like Bryan's profile, just older. So I'm like, it had to be someone, and they didn't even know necessarily the name Bryan Kohberger by then when he's posting, November 30th. What is that, 17 days after the murders? He's posting about, I think the killer left the knife sheath behind. Like, how would he know that? Whatever he said. Anyway, back to Molly. We'll get to Papa Rogers later. Molly said she could not find the 1122 Kind Road address as the address number was hidden by the porch light, which caused her to remain in the area for approximately 15 minutes. Which is good she remained there, but we're going to see at the end what she saw and what she didn't see. Molly also stated her Google Maps told her to go to the parking lot immediately behind 1122 King Road. Okay, her Google Maps is leading her back to that. It's got to be a dark parking lot at 4 a.m. in November. Molly stated she initially parked in the front of 1122 King Road and could see a female in the top left window. Now this says the 3rd-story bathroom. So at first I thought, oh, was it Kaylee? I didn't realize they would be awake around this time. But later she's going to talk about the girl having dark hair. So I'm like, okay, it must have been Xana. But why would Xana be on the 3rd-story bathroom? Was there a bathroom on that 2nd level? I would assume there was, but maybe did Xana go up there preferring the 3rd-story bathroom for some reason? Perhaps. Molly said she saw the female a couple more times in the same window and she would duck down when Molly looked at her. Now I've heard that before. I've read so many documents, I don't know where I heard that. Like maybe Xana was peeking out like, ooh, who's that? Is that? And then ducking back. And most likely she was ducking back because when we get to the other documents, I'll do it in a separate video, we'll talk about how Kaylee did kind of tell some of her friends she thought she had a stalker because she could see like a shadowy figure out there, behind 1122 King Road. Her dog Murphy was reacting to this man. So people are wondering, okay, was that Bryan Kohberger doing some of his reconnaissance drive-bys before the crime, planning? Did he just go and sit back behind the parking lot, which is what I assumed, and just sit there and was like really still and just glancing up at the entire house, or especially Maddie's room, and just seeing the flow of the house and who would come to let the dog out at what time? Was he bold enough, knowing him he probably was, to literally get out of his car? Did he stand in the woods? Did he just Stand and stare? Is that who Kaylee saw? So my point is, if Xana knew that had been going on, I'm sure Kaylee probably told everyone. Is that why Xana might have been kind of ducking, kind of trying to be aware of her surroundings and who was watching her? The document says Molly then said she drove to the back parking lot behind 1122 King Road and parked. At first she was in the front of the house, and for some reason Molly could not see for sure to verify she was at 1122. I get it, some addresses are hard to read, it's, you're unfamiliar with the surroundings. So she leaves that front, and we don't exactly know, they're not giving us a blow-by-blow time, it's not like here, but they do have surveillance video confirming what she's saying. Okay, she drove to the back parking lot, so she's leaving that front door area because she's not sure she's at the right place. She's kind of disobeying her GPS, and she goes to the back parking lot and parked. She said she could see the back courtyard area behind the house and noticed all of the lights were on. So wow. All of the lights. I wonder if she means, reminds me of a Kanye song, Rihanna. Did she see the second floor lights on as well as the top floor lights? Or I wonder, maybe just the kitchen lights. I don't know what she means by all of the lights. But I'm sure that helped Bryan Kohberger just get in that sliding door eventually. Of course, this is not victim shaming or blaming at all. But a lot of people have been more cognizant, especially in Moscow after this crime, and wherever. I get it, my husband's paranoid about this. Always a lot of shades closed the second it gets dark, but shades closed and aware of who could be out there trying to watch and hide. Molly stated her map told her to walk into the back of the house, but she did not feel comfortable doing so because there was no path. And I don't blame her, because we can see photos and maybe we've seen videos of, this was probably Brian's walking point. Whoever parks back there in the back of the 1122 King Road house, you don't see like a nice little sidewalk or a path to get down to that slider. It looks kind of rocky, and from other body cam videos we can see like the ruggedness of it in the daytime, so that would look scary at night. But it's probably Brian's path. I was reading too, a detective saw footprints in the snow. He measured them 13 something inches, and then Brian wears a size 13, but then someone corrected me on X, like size 13 doesn't mean 13 inches. So we've got a lot to talk about coming up. So Molly stated her map told her to walk into the back of the house, but she did not feel comfortable doing so because there was no path. And another thing with Molly, we can see her difficulty in getting around. So it's one thing for a Bryan Kohberger, pretty fit and nimble and agile and everything he's used to, or was used to running in the past and everything. So I'm sure it wasn't necessarily a problem for him to take that path. But Molly said she started to walk down the road, which runs north-south immediately to the east of the residence. So she must have left her car initially up in the back parking lot and started to walk around on the road. No wonder she was there for 15 minutes. She's trying to deliver this jack-in-the-box to Xana. So she's walking all the way around. So that would be kind of a long loop, but at least it would be like sidewalk or street. It would be cement. It would be an easier path for her kind of lumbering down there as opposed to trying to go on that side of the house. It says, Molly stated a tan sedan drove next to her while she was walking. Now, at first I was like, oh my goodness, is this Kohberger driving past her, up that street on the side of the house? She said a tan sedan. And I was like, okay, a sedan fits, but it's not tan. The Elantra was white. But I was thinking, okay, it's dark. Maybe she can't really see what color it is. But it turns out this will not be him. Molly said there was one male driver and noticed he did not look at me. She said he looked completely zoned and just drove by her. Molly later stated the driver was white with blonde or red spiky hair. So I was really like, wait, okay, he's a white male, but Bryan doesn't have blonde or red spiky hair. Even though some people think in that thumbs up selfie after the murders that Bryan took, they think his hair has a little bit maybe of a reddish kind of dark burgundy hue, but not red and spiky. Molly also noticed the dome light in the car was on when it went by, and later told me the male was wearing a light colored collared shirt. So another thing I was like, oh yeah, I see why this wasn't him. First of all, why would he have the dome light on if he's trying to surreptitiously sneak in there and commit these horrible crimes? You don't have your dome light on, drawing more attention to yourself. And even in the surveillance videos we've seen from Dateline and elsewhere, I can't tell, but I don't think the dome light is on in that car. And then would he really be wearing a light colored collared shirt? Probably not. He would probably maybe be wearing overalls and this and that, covered up, just like hazmat material, just something really covered up. So Molly stated she walked back up to her car and drove back to the front of 1122 King Road. So maybe she saw how long of a trek it would be. So she parked in the front of the house, couldn't tell where she was, drove up to the back, parked there, started walking down that side road on the side of the house. Maybe she realized, oh, that's going to be a long walk if I've got to walk all the way down that slope road, go in. Maybe she walked far enough to see, okay, this is indeed 1122 King Road, but I don't need to walk all the way down here, drop it off at the front door, and then walk all the way back. I don't know why Molly just didn't, once she parked the first time in front of the house, and she couldn't see the address. I don't know why she just didn't get out and like take a peek, like, oh, this is it. But maybe she didn't know, of course, there was an address there. So anyway, she had driven all the way to the back. She started walking down the side, at which point, yes, that's true. It says at which point she saw the address numbers. So that's why she turned around. She didn't deliver it. She turned around and walked back up to her car and drove down to the front. At which point, this is the point where she saw the address numbers. So she was hanging around a lot during this time, which is kind of fortuitous in a way, because maybe she was meant to be there for Bryan to pull right in behind her for some reason. Anyway, Molly said she placed the order at the front door, took a picture, and then left at approximately 0400 hours. So that's 4 a.m. We always wondered, where did she deliver it? Was it at the front? Was it at the slider? I don't think we had confirmation until now. And for example, that picture, these are all the types of evidence things I can see in my mind's eye. I can see that bag, you know, Jack in the Box right there at the front, and we don't have that yet. So that's the kind of evidence we'll have to apparently request. Hopefully I've already requested it. During the time Molly was seen in the area of the King Road residence, the white Elantra can be seen via, they redact this address, but it's some King Road camera driving back and forth on Walenta Drive. So Walenta is that drive up higher where he can have a vantage point down below of what's going on down there. So the same time Molly was in the area, since she was there like 15 minutes, a long time, the white Elantra can be seen via the blank King Road camera driving back and forth on Walenta Drive. So he's probably waiting for the perfect moment. And then the white Elantra enters the King Road, Queen Road loop at approximately 3:56 hours. So we've got some times here. 3:56 a.m., Molly's still there. I don't see exactly what time Molly arrived, but at 3:56 a.m., the white Elantra is pulling into that King Road, Queen Road loop. At the point Molly pulled into the front parking lot before she dropped the order off, so this is when she's walked back up to the back, she's pulling her Subaru back down, so this is the point where she's at the front parking lot. She hasn't dropped the order off yet. The white Elantra pulled in behind Molly's vehicle. That tripped me out. A gray Subaru Forester. Whoa. So he pulled in right behind Molly and then exited the King Road, is what it says, at approximately 3:58 hours. Molly did not mention seeing the white Elantra behind her at any time. Okay, so cops know because they have surveillance video and they can corroborate everything Molly's saying. They see Bryan's white Elantra up and down, you know, Walenta Drive, okay, pulling into the loop, King Queen Road loop at 3:56 a.m. That's the same time Molly has pulled into the front parking lot before she drops the order off. Now, words are everything. I know, you know, we can say stuff and people will interpret it differently. The way this is written, it says the white Elantra pulled in behind Molly's vehicle. Like, wow, I need to look at all those surveillance videos again. Do we have that 3:56 time? So at about 3:56 a.m., Molly's at the front parking lot, Bryan in the white Elantra is pulling in behind Molly's vehicle, and then he's exiting the King Road at 3:58, 2 minutes later, and Molly doesn't mention seeing him behind her. Did he have his headlights on? Why didn't Molly see him behind her? And semantics, what does this officer mean by pulled in behind? Is he saying Bryan's white Elantra pulled right in behind Molly's Subaru? Like right behind? That's one way to interpret it. He could just mean Bryan in his white Elantra pulled in after Molly pulled in. So we don't exactly know until we can see the video. I want to look at the video again now that I know for sure I'm looking for a gray Subaru Forester, not that big white Chevy truck that belonged to Molly's boyfriend Jimmy. So now we have details where we know what to look for. So I know that black and white surveillance is kind of far away, and it's not even from the vantage point in front of 1122 King Road. So I don't know if we'll ever see, well, we have to see this point because the cops saw it. I just don't think they've released this particular footage yet. We haven't seen a Subaru Forester pulling up in front of 1122 King Road. We haven't seen Molly get out and drop the food off right there. So there's a lot we haven't seen before that doesn't belong to, you know, the gross, gruesome stuff we don't want to see. The officer wrote, I continued to question Molly about her time near the residence. So my thing is, I try and be hyper aware, like they say, you know, what is that Krav Maga? Like, put your head on a swivel, always know your surroundings. Like, you know, if you were about to be questioned, like who's around you and if something happens so you're not all blissed out. But of course, we can't always know what's around us. If Bryan had his headlights on, if Molly's there 3:56 a.m. in front of 1122 King Road, if he indeed had his headlights on, like memory serves in the surveillance videos we've seen, if someone's pulling in right behind you, if he's parking right behind her, is this why she said park right next to me? If he's pulling in behind her, wouldn't you see those headlights coming at you? But maybe, I mean, she had worked a 12 to 14-hour shift or longer, so he's continuing to question Molly about her time near the residence. She told me she walked down Queen Road at one point with her flashlight out. Makes sense. And this is where they corroborate her. She was telling the truth. Molly can be seen doing so on the footage from blank King Road. So whatever other footage they're talking about, which I don't think has been released. So they're corroborating she did walk down Queen Road at one point with her flashlight out. She can be seen doing so on the footage from King Road. Molly also continued to tell me the female she saw in the upstairs bathroom window would duck down when Molly looked at her. Molly described her as having long brown hair. So if it's true that it wasn't a blonde, we know both Kaylee and Maddie had blonde hair at the time of their horrible murders because we can see that in that very last photo from November 12th. So it's got to be Xana. Unless, you know, we know they have blonde hair. We've seen the grub truck video footage and all that. So unless someone had a 2 a.m. epiphany to dye their hair brunette, Kaylee and Maddie were still blonde. So it must be Xana with the long brown hair ducking, you know, hiding from Molly, which I get because, you know, sometimes I get it. You just want the dasher. I have them just drop the food off in the front, you know, couch. Don't mind the dogs barking at you, looking like they want to come through the window at you. Indeed, she's a Belgian Malinois mix. She literally broke part of the front window, like her nails barking at the mailman. So sometimes you don't want to interact with the dasher. You just want, okay, my food's there. They leave. Let me grab it. You know, and that's probably what Xana was doing. Molly stated she could not identify the girl as one of the victims. So she didn't know, which makes sense. If you're looking at someone way up there, that person's ducking. All you see is long brown hair. You're not going to necessarily pick out facial features and be able to identify them, you know, days later. Approximately 30 minutes into the interview, so this was a really long interview, Special Agent Skelton requested Molly take part in a cognitive interview. I get it. I totally understand that. No diss to Molly at all. I'm not sure if they have everyone take cognitive interviews, but it makes sense from how we've seen Molly's behavior in other body cam video. If Molly was kind of acting the way she's acted, you know, and her fiance says that's because of her trauma and speaking to police, maybe that's another reason it took her 10 days to make it to the police station. I mean, maybe she didn't realize right away, like, I don't know when Molly learned and put it together Was it by that Monday? I'm sure she heard of the murders right away. And did she realize, oh, that's 1122 King Road. That's the house that I delivered to, I don't know how early she called the police. But anyway, it took 10 days to get into this interview. The way she's acted in other body cam video, whether it's due to her trauma, PTSD, she is only taking prescribed medications according to this man who claims to be her fiance. And again, she blew zeros when she was at the police station that time. And so I'm not going to ascribe any of that to any addiction issues or anything if I don't have any proof. But I see why this special agent asked her, look, take part in a cognitive interview. I want to know if you're all there, if you're understanding what we're asking. It's very crucial testimony. The only person who may have really been there, outside, that is, not the people in the house, when Bryan was there and pulling around and Molly was there for 15 minutes. So it says, Molly agreed and Special Agent Skelton began the cognitive interview. During this interview, Molly confirmed much of the information she already told us. So that's good. She was able to just confirm what she said before. That's another thing in her favor. For example, when a person tells a lie and they have to do it consecutively and they have it rehearsed, sometimes when cops ask them those facts out of order or try and go backwards, try and do your steps backwards, what you did, if they're lying, it screws them all up sometimes because they're like, I memorized it in this. But if it's the truth, that doesn't change. You might get more details, but you might get finer points, but the main strokes are not going to change. Like yesterday, let's say I went to the post office, I bought stamps, I went through the drive-thru, picked up Donato's order, food for my family. I noticed the car was dirty, so I took it through the car wash. I went to CVS to pick up a prescription for myself, and then I came home. So that's how I remember it in my mind, and I could do that whole thing backwards if I had to. Those are the facts of what I remember doing yesterday. Now, if we got into a more extensive interview, of course, it would be more details like, oh yeah, it was really hot, and oh, that USPS postal service machine really frustrated me, buying the stamps, and then this is the way I drove to Donato's, and this is the route I took to the car wash, and I got the Tsunami $29 car wash, from Splash. You'd get more details, but the bare facts, the basic facts would not change because that's the truth of what I did yesterday. So Molly confirmed much of the information she already told us. Molly was able to remember she had her dog with her during one of her walks in the area, but did not clarify much more in the ways of the details of the evening. So that's a little troublesome. Maybe she was exhausted. Oh my goodness, working so long. But so that makes sense. That's probably why, she can be seen at one point with her flashlight out walking down Queen Road. I'm assuming since she had her dog with her, she was allowing her dog fresh air, walk, exercise time to use the bathroom. So that all makes sense to me. Those are further details about her time in the area Molly was able to give police. However, she was not able to clarify much more in the ways of the details of the evening, which makes sense. I mean, it's your last stop. If you're a dasher, you're probably like, oh, I'm dropping off all these orders. I don't know how many orders she dropped off in so many hours, driving all around the place. Her last stop, it makes sense that she might not remember, oh, this is the face of the woman and how she looked I saw in the window, or this or that about all the cars parked in the parking lot or whatever. It says, we thanked Molly for her cooperation, offered any support she may need, and concluded our interview. So that's cool. Now, this is where we figure out who the tan sedan was. Subsequent investigation of video footage and cellular data, so that takes a while to come in, showed the, quote, tan sedan Molly saw was likely a light-colored SUV which left the area. So they were able to corroborate, okay, that wasn't a sedan, but it was a light-colored SUV and it left the area. That's probably what she saw, with the white guy with spiky hair, light-colored shirt. Probably wasn't Bryan. It says, moreover, it does not appear Molly saw the white Elantra at any point during her time near the residence. So it's like, whoa, okay. Because she doesn't mention on November 23rd a white Elantra at any point parking right next to her. But obviously, at some point, Molly must have learned, of course, these horrible murders, this massacre happened at 1122 King Road. She's the DoorDash driver. Oh, guess what? The killer came around the same time. At some point, Molly must have learned about this video that exists that we haven't seen. Maybe she just knew about it somehow. I don't know if cops would have told her. They tend to keep things close to the vest. I mean, I'm sure they didn't conduct this interview saying, so Molly, did you see that white Elantra that pulled in right behind you? Like, I'm sure they don't ask leading questions because they don't want her to say, oh, yeah, I kind of remember that. They want her to offer that advice so they know it's coming from her. But since she didn't offer that advice on November 23rd, she must have found out about it at some point. By the time we're watching the body cam videos later and Molly's going on and on about, I have to testify against Bryan. She said something like, I saw Bryan there parked right next to me. So the only thing that we can truly corroborate of her statements based on this police statement, and I don't know if there'll be further narratives coming, this is the only thing I could find including the words DoorDash. In fact, I'll just search for dash to make sure. Like, I searched so many different combinations to make sure I had all the DoorDash mentioned documents out of the ones that were recently released. I see we do have something about a dash cam, but this must be something else. It's a narrative from November 12th, 2022, 2100 hours. Someone began an overtime shift. So this is from Jacob Teschdahl. So he's on campus. He's in a department vehicle that doesn't have a dash cam. I think that's nothing about anything related to DoorDash, but I just wanted to search dash just to be sure. All this other stuff is just talking about dash cams, and it's not related to DoorDash or Molly. It's so many testimonies. They got so many people calling. They got stuff about K-bar, knife purchasers, and there's a lot. And that's what we've already read about the search warrant. And this is just talking about dash-mounted cameras. So we have a lot to go through, but it feels like Supplement 104 is the only thing we have right now that really details Molly's interview, the DoorDash driver, her movements, everything that night. So I'm not sure how she found out eventually that Bryan in his white Elantra literally pulled in behind her. So I see why she says, I have to testify against Bryan. She was probably subpoenaed at that point before he, confessed and pled guilty. I see why she said parked right next to him because he must have pulled in right behind her. But in terms of her seeing him, we don't have evidence that she ever really literally laid eyes on Bryan or even saw that a white Elantra pulled in at any point behind her or near the residence. So unless there are subsequent interviews with Molly, I don't know how many times they interviewed her. I can search the name Molly, but a lot of that's redacted, so I don't quite see that in the new stuff. So that's why I like to see the actual interviews, see what's actually been said. So Molly was true in several things she said on that body cam video. Yes, she was the DoorDash driver. We have it confirmed now, basically, from these documents. It's her. It's her Subaru Forester. We've seen it on body cam before from that same year when she was stopped, just less than 5 months earlier, when she was stopped in June 18th, 2022, and June 19th, 2022, I think back-to-back stops. So we have that confirmation. It's Molly. It was her Subaru Forester. We know from the police documents, Bryan was there at the same time. He pulled in behind her. So that's what the evidence shows. What we don't see is Molly realizing at that point that a white Elantra driven by Bryan was anywhere near her. We still don't know if she had any dash cam video. I don't know if that would be mentioned later or if at all. So there are things that have been corroborated. They cleared her early. They were able to see, her movements, and I didn't know she was out there walking the dog and all that. And that makes you wonder, she left, apparently, it sounds like. See, we don't have exact times. We don't know exactly when she pulled in, but they do have on video she was at least there at 3:56? We know that much. We know she was there at 3:56 a.m. We know within the 2 minutes Bryan was pulling in behind her vehicle and exiting King Road at 3:58 hours. We know Molly was there for about 15 minutes, but they don't give us the range of 15 minutes. What was it? Was it 3:45 until 4 a.m.? How long was she like walking down King Road and walking back? I don't think she walks very quickly, but maybe she didn't walk far. She had her flashlight. They were able to corroborate that. The reason I'm asking is because it depends on, was Bryan watching her? Was he somewhere else from some vantage point? Did he see her? Did he see her car parked right near the front and knew, oh, someone's here, someone's awake, someone's dropping off food? Did he watch Xana come to the front door, take the food? What time did Bryan go into the house? Did he wait for Molly to pull away and leave before he went in and did the horrible things he did because he waited for that witness to leave? More than likely, yes. If Molly was still walking her dog and coming back to 1122 King Road, and Bryan's, at the same time, Bryan's entering the slider and doing those horrible things, Molly might have heard some things. She might have been able to tell the police more, like, oh yeah, I started hearing screaming or rumbling or bumbling. I don't know how much you can hear from outside, but what we know is the slider was found open. I'm not sure if Bryan kind of left it open, like if he walked in, left the slider open, did all those horrible things and then left. Did he go in, close the slider behind him and then do all those things and then open, and then also the front door was wide open. I was reading in these documents, so I heard that too from another person. We've heard some of these things grumbled about or whispered about. Now we actually have the documents to back it up and to learn of stuff we've never seen. The video footage, the cell phone data, all the cars around there, Molly around there, more of the white Elantra, not just that one from far away. We can see Bryan doing the 3-point turn, but I mean whatever this one from King Road is, not just the Linda Lane footage. There's obviously other footage we have to get, so we will get it. Moscow, I trust them. They work really well, unlike this other Washington Police Department I was dealing with yesterday and stopping payments on checks about. Anyway, that was the Travis Decker case. If you're part of my Patreon, you know how that turned out, getting his body cam footage. But anyway, I trust Moscow. They send me the letter and they say, okay, this is the estimate of how much it cost, because they have to look things over. Of course, they have to redact what they need to redact, and they're very professional about it. The records coordinator sends me a letter and they'll say, okay, this is an estimate based on 30 minutes to search for and retrieve the requested records, 15 minutes for redacting and legal review, 10 minutes for admin tasks, blah, blah, blah. This one thing you want, or whatever group of stuff you want, it'll be like $41, let's say, like it was today. And they're so sweet. And you have to call. You can't just pay online. You have to call. So I call and they're like, she's so sweet. Yesterday, she's like, you want to pay the whole 60 something, whatever? And I was like, sure. And then she was like, well, you could just do 50%. So I was like, okay. So she, calculates 50% of each, and then I pay them the balance when it's ready. And they're really good about just providing evidence. The evidence that is meant to come out, legally, not any of we don't want to see gory graphic stuff. That's not what we're going for. Some people criticize true crime followers as if we want to, just relish his crimes or go over all the gory stuff. It's like, no, they know what to provide. If they provide the way that 22-year-old cop who was the first on scene, if they provide any of his footage, of course it'll all be blurred. People might just want to know his reaction, or what he said or what he saw, or timestamps, and people like to put timelines together, not to further victimize any victims. Anyway, I better close here. 1 Thessalonians 5:23 through 24. Now may the God of peace himself sanctify you through and through, that is, separate you from profane and vulgar things, make you pure and whole and undamaged, consecrated to him, set apart for his purpose, and may your spirit and soul and body be kept complete and be found blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Faithful and absolutely trustworthy is he who is calling you to himself for your salvation, and he will do it. He will fulfill his call by making you holy, guarding you, watching over you, and protecting you as his own. And that's what I pray for, protection. I do want to delve into Kohberger more. I've been creating this long video just looking at his childhood, because I like to look at what happened. How did this happen? How do we attempt to avoid creating another Bryan Kohberger? What will it take? Prevent a crime. So that's why I like to delve into him, not to give him any glory or anything. And the way the judge said yesterday, yeah, it'd be nice if, he doesn't do any interviews and people don't like look at him for clicks and all that, or write books about him, whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, we have freedom of the press. We have First Amendment laws. We have freedom to speak and do things. People who want to discuss true crime amongst ourselves, we can. That doesn't make us freaks or weirdos. Also, I'm thinking we'll be talking about Bryan Kohberger for 50 years, the same way we still talk about Ted Bundy. We still talk about Charles Manson. They make movies about him. They examine him, not because like they're in love with him or somebody, supporting what he did. It's just to know, to try and understand in order to prevent. It's like a cautionary tale. But I like this because this closing scripture talks about purpose, and I was thanking God so much for giving me a purpose. I feel like he's helped me be in my purpose, giving me skills to do some of this stuff for whatever purpose is here. I was watching this one woman talk to this inmate on phone calls from prison, and she's just sitting there talking to him like, oh, I'm so bored, I need something to do. And I'm like, I'm never ever bored. I'm always like, I don't have enough hours in the day to do everything I want to do, to fulfill my purpose. And I was thinking, oh, she doesn't have a purpose, she doesn't know the Lord, she's very kind of anti-Jesus or whatever. And I was like, no wonder she's just lost, floating around, because she doesn't have a purpose in this life. She's purposeless. So my prayer is that we're all purpose-filled. And wasn't it a trip yesterday at the sentencing hearing? It was one woman, older woman, I need to figure out who she was. She was even saying, I believe she was quoting scripture, and I believe she was trying to understand Bryan, and she was even to the level of forgiveness where she was able to say, if you need someone to talk to, you can talk to me. And I was like, whoa, that blew me away. Everyone's reaction is how they were meant to react. Olivia knocked it out of the park with her eloquence, poise, the way she just clapped back and she just clowned Bryan. I'm sorry, I loved it. I really did love it. And, that was appropriate for her and the things her family said. Some people didn't agree with all the jokes about you're going to get big D's in prison. But other people, in their way, they reacted. Scripture and sobbing, that was fine too. So to each his own. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned.